our beloved practitioner who made his transition recently. So today we are here to celebrate the life of Fred Asper. Fred has been an active member of our community for about 25 years. He served in many capacities over time, from being a treasurer on the board of trustees, a licensed practitioner, to serving on the Interfaith Council, and so much more. As far as I can remember, Fred was always here every single Sunday, making sure that everything was in place for a beautiful Sunday celebration. He was dedicated to practicing the principles of science of mind. When Frank asked me to lead this memorial service for Fred, I knew that I had to say yes without hesitation, since Fred and I had been such good friends. Every year on his birthday, Fred and Dory invited me to his birthday celebration at Medrano's in Lancaster. I will miss those good times we spent together. Also, I remember Fred driving me to a practitioner retreat in Ventura. Although Fred on the surface appears to be a man of a few words, I found him to be extremely talkative. I felt very comfortable in Fred's presence. So I have been very happy to spend time finding out more about Fred's life and his dedication and devotion and service to this community. Okay. And just to start out the service, I have a reading. This reading was given to me years ago when I went to a Course in Miracles retreat. And my young son, who had passed away at the age of 16, I was there to just kind of mourn that through. And somebody was kind enough to give me this reading at that time, and I've kept it with me ever since. This is called A Closer Walk. When someone we love dies, we suffer. This part of that, the part of us that suffers the most is the part that believes happiness comes from physical form. This is the part that sees the body as the cause for our fulfillment, physical sensations as our goal, and possessions as our purpose. This is a part that wishes us to believe that God does not exist, and this life is all we have to work with. During grief, we temporarily lose our true focus. We mourn the fact that our loved one won't be physically present for us to talk to walk with, to share our physical experiences. We mourn that they will not continue their own physical experiences. Our lost friends, parents, and spouses won't pursue their dreams or hold our hands as we pursue ours. Working through this grief means releasing our grasp on the physical to embrace the eternal. It is through this process that we humans grow into closer contact with God. We begin to understand that the most important part of our lost loved ones is not lost to us. The love remains. We experience a new perspective on what is important in our lives and what isn't. We feel life differently. Our fear of loss begins to lessen. We are freer to enjoy the things around us without the fear hanging over them. We develop a faith that what is lasting endures. When we allow ourselves to grieve, we grow in happiness. We grow in faith. At this time, I'd like to invite Renee up for the opening prayer.
If you care to join me in closing your eyes, and let's turn within to that still space where God is known. and start with a declaration of faith that is a foundation of what we believe here, and a teaching that Fred wholeheartedly embraced. That God is all that there is. That it is God expressing its life through its creation. And we are all manifestations of God's life in this physical form. And so God was embodied in Fred, in this space in our lives. And that truth continues to go on, even as the consciousness, the soul, the essence of Fred left this body. Because God is here right now, Fred is here with us still right now. Though we cannot see him, we absolutely can feel him. And so our time together here today, in honor of this beautiful being that we knew as Fred, blesses his continued experience with our open hearts and our memories of how he touched our lives. And so let's know that God's heart and soul as Fred still blesses us now. And God as Fred expresses his gratitude to us for having touched his life and honoring that journey here today. And so as we move forward in today's celebration of life, we know that this life continues on, and the interactions that we have had and will continue to have with Fred will continue that blessing unto eternity. So I release these words with gratitude to Fred and gratitude for the way that Fred touched our lives. And we honor this symbiotic blessing with the words, and so it is.
At this time, I'd like to invite Dina Efferson Williams. She is going to sing "I Can Only Imagine."
Mercy Me, because Fred actually came up after I performed it once and went on for a little bit about how much he liked it. And part of me thought, well, maybe it's not quite appropriate, but then again, yeah, it completely is. So I can only imagine. Mercy Me for Fred. I can only imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for your spirit? Or in awe of you be still? Will I sing in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Only imagine when that day comes and I find myself standing in the sun. I can only imagine when all I will do is forever worship you. I can only imagine, yeah. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for your spirit? Or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. Yes, I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in all of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah, yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. Can only imagine when all I will do is forever worship you. I can only imagine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dina. I can see why Fred really liked that song. Okay, yeah, I'm going to do the eulogy right now, the story of Fred's life. And he has a pretty extensive biography of things that he has accomplished. So Fred Asper was born on March 13th, 1939 in Ogden, Utah. Well, I just found out that this morning because I thought for sure he was born in Salt Lake City, but I said, no. Yeah, Dory had told me differently. So I looked, Penn had given me like a short eulogy, and so I found out this morning he was actually born in Ogden, Utah. He made his transition on March 23rd, 2025. He was the middle child of 3 siblings. His older brother, Richard, preceded him in death. He is survived by one sister, Louise, who was the youngest. As far as can be recalled, he had a happy childhood and got along really well. He and his brother Dick were very close. His religious background was with the Mormon community. He was married in the Mormon temple at the age of 19. He is survived by 3 children from this prior marriage and 9 grandchildren. Fred graduated from West High School in 1957. He went to the University of Utah and graduated with a master's degree in mechanical engineering. He worked as a government employee for the Department of the Air Force for 35 years. His first job was at Hill Air Force Base in Salt Lake City, Utah. In 1989, he received a promotion as chief engineer at Castle Air Force Base in Merced, California. He was eventually hired on at Edwards Air Force Base in California. Fred and Doris Pierce, he met Doris Pierce, who he called Dory, in 1986. Dory was working at a government job in Salt Lake City. Her friend Annette gave Fred Dory's phone number. He ended up calling her, and she thought he had a really nice voice. He lived in close proximity to her. They both went to the same library in Salt Lake City. The 2 of them were studying fanatically about World War II. They started to go on hikes and lots of walks. They eventually ended up getting married. They eloped on September 18th, 1987 by a justice of the peace. The setting was in Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming, just south of Yellowstone. Now, over here, you can see their wedding picture. Fred is wearing a cute little hat. So they had a wedding picture taken of them, and in the background was a peak of the Grand Teton and the edge of Lake Jenny, which Dory describes as one of the most beautiful places on earth. And to this day, this large framed photograph is still hanging on their wall in the living room, and Penn was kind enough to bring it over this morning. Fred adored his dogs. He had 2 Shetland Shepherds. His favorite one was Casey, a rescue pup. The other one was Sophie. Fred just loved walking those dogs. Some of Fred's interests were walking and hiking. Dory said way back at the beginning of their relationship, he was into yoga. He was also interested in classical symphony music and enjoyed going to concerts in Salt Lake City. He also went to concerts at Disney Hall in LA. They frequently attended events at Lancaster Performing Arts Center as well. Okay, this is the romantic part, okay? Dory recalls Fred reading to her. The passages were from romantic novels and love stories. They were from funny, whimsical, feel-good books. He was always anxious to share his favorite interests with Dory. Recently, when Dory was in rehab in LA, Fred showed his sentimental and generous side by bringing her red roses. Okay, before joining the Center for Spiritual Living Antelope Valley, Fred had attended the Church of Religious Science in Salt Lake City. He was the one who introduced Dory to religious science. Fred and Dory moved to Lancaster in September 1993. He became interested in our center when he saw an article in the local newspaper celebrating an anniversary with Reverend Don Welsh. Yeah, for those who remember him. Okay, they joined the AV Church of Religious Science, as it was called at the time, in the early 2000s. Fred just loved the philosophy of this center and took a lot of classes and workshops. He especially loved the sound baths, and he never missed any of them. Fred was a very active volunteer and participated in whatever he was called to do. On Sunday mornings, he showed up early to put up the flag and set up the candles. He was in charge of ordering the candles as well. I remember the Sunday he was awarded a plaque for being Volunteer of the Month. Fred took a special training in Oregon as part of a tutoring program for children, sponsored by this center. He was involved with tutoring children in mathematics. Fred and I were members of the board together. I was secretary and he was treasurer. Reverend Hildy was minister at the time. Dory states that Reverend Hildy had him running around doing all sorts of things, taking advantage of his better nature. As treasurer, and even after his term, he spent time after church counting the money from the tithes. Fred was a member of the Interfaith Council and participated in the National Day of Prayer and other events put on by this organization. He was chaplain at AV Hospital for many years and prayed for the people there who were sick. Fred completed course requirements to go into practitioner training. He became a licensed practitioner somewhere around 2007. He had been an active practitioner at our center for about 18 years. When his health declined, he was no longer able to do pulpit duty, but he held the high watch sitting in the back of the sanctuary. In conclusion, here are what some people at our center have said about Fred. Nick describes him as sweet, unforgettable, dependable, reliable, serious, and trustworthy. He was strong-willed and wanted to do things his way. He was always true to himself. He was committed to do things he put his mind to. Penn describes him as sweet and gentle. Jane said that he was always positive, upbeat, and pleasant. He took action for whatever he was called to do. My son Cameron said he remembered Fred as always being kind to him. That's important for a teenager. Okay. For myself, I would say Fred was always kind, caring, and respectful towards me. He was a loyal and loving friend. We both shared a love of learning and service. He was humble and never boasted for his huge dedication and contribution to our community. As he moves on to his greater yet to be, he will always be remembered with love for all that he has given to us, to this center of spiritual living, Antelope Valley. We will miss you, Fred, and bless your continued journey in the eternal life of your soul and spirit. Okay, right now I invite Espy to come up. She has some readings and poems.
That was lovely, Joan. Thank you. I learned so much. So I was curious to know when Fred had become a practitioner, because when I was in practitioner training, he monitored the class. So he was in the class with me and Russ. And, he was a man of very few words. I have to say, he never complained about anything. He never said anything was wrong in his life. He always said that he just loved everything and everything was so perfect for him. But he did share himself, as far as being who he was and who he knew he was as a practitioner. What I gathered from Fred was that he loved being a practitioner. When during COVID, I was trying to get something from the practitioners to be posting, to try to keep the community together, and we were doing all kinds of different stuff. And I would ask people to send me something, something they wrote, something they said, send me a prayer, send me whatever, right? And I don't remember anyone saying anything except for Fred. And so what Fred sent, and we put it here in the program, is the practitioner speaks with authority. And so I just love this, because it was very Fred. He knew how the law worked. He knew the science of mind principles, and he knew what it was to be a practitioner. And he expressed that all the time in everything that he did. I used to call him Freddie, That was my thing. I would just say, hey, Freddie, all the time. So I didn't write this poem. I pulled it out of, you Google like what to read, and I found this poem, and I'm going to go ahead and read it here. It's called Autumn Rain. It says, do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamonds gilt on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift, uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. I think it's so beautiful, and it's just right aligned with Renee's prayer, knowing that life is eternal and Fred is always here. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to invite up Stacy. She's going to sing It's a Wonderful World.
Say, oh, my Fred. I used to call him my Fred. I love Fred so much. And, I started coming here in 2015, and Fred was a staple. Like, he was like the flowers. He, every Sunday, he was here first. And we would come in and we would rehearse, and he was always here, and he would wait patiently for the opportunity to come up and give us a hug. I'm trying to keep it together. I just love Fred so much, and he'll always be sitting there. You'd look up, and there he would be, and sometimes he'd fall asleep, and that was okay. That was okay. There was a moment when, and I only knew Fred from here, but the way that Fred welcomed me and loved us was just so unassuming. And there was a period when he was painting his nails, because I felt his essence was very experimental. And he would always see if our nails colored matched. And like 95% of the time they did. And it was just one of those sweet little things that he would find ways to connect in really, like I said, unassuming ways. So when Joan asked me if I wanted to sing, I said yes. And the first song I heard was It's a Wonderful World. And so I'm going to get through this song. And I feel that's this is kind of how he saw the world. roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed days and the dark sacred nights. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of a rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, and I watch them grow. They'll know so much more than I'll ever know. I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Stacy. Yeah, at this time, we're going to have sharing from his friends and possibly from Dory's family members. And so we thought we'd have people like line up on the side if you'd like to share and come up and make some remarks. Unless we just come up like one at a time. What, Jane, did you think that you want to say some remarks about Fred? Yes? Not yet, okay. Well, let's start with Renee.
And if you like, I can take a microphone out, because some people may not want to come up, and I can put the mic in your face. Yeah. Oh, okay, he's recording it on video. Okay. So yes, please come on up. Well, I had the pleasure of going through practitioner training with Fred. And yes, it was 2007 when we graduated and got licensed. And I agree. My experience with him, yes, was he was a man of few words. But he always had something, and especially in class. Sometimes, you know, people in class, it's like having to pull teeth to get them to speak up. But he always was there. He always had something to share. And he always had something to contribute. And I, of course, came to know at that time that he spent a career as an engineer, and his prayer treatments were just so appropriate of an engineer. Not a lot of words, but very powerful words. Just went right to it, and his spiritual mind treatments were just step by step, exactly as we're taught to do it. And again, the consciousness behind it was powerful and effective, very effective. And just seeing him in the community over the years, that he was such a giver. Like you said, he was always the first one here. He would open up, and he'd many times be the last one to leave. He'd lock up. And the things that he did to represent us in the community, giving so much at the hospital, offering prayer, and the INTA and other things. And I thought he had been on the board multiple times, because I know he was on the board once when I was on, at least twice as treasurer. And then even when he wasn't on the board as treasurer, he still did the job. And just so very active and so very giving of himself. Yeah, it was such a pleasure to know him and watch him and just be present with him and watch his activities. And I asked Sharon, most of you know Sharon, she's a practitioner here, probably longer than anybody currently a practitioner. And I asked her, what would you like me to share from you? And she said that she misses him so much, because even though for the last 6 months or so, his contribution was to sit in vigil, you really felt his presence, his consciousness, and his heart. And he has very much so been missed since his transition. And so that is something, my time with him, my experience of him, my memory of him will always be not only touching my heart, but inspiring to give more, because it's not so much a lot of words to give, but the consciousness and the presence and the tenderness that he carried. So, thank you, Fred. So I'll take that.
Okay, the reason we might want you to come up here, even though it might be uncomfortable, is because we're recording this for Dory. So this way, if you have remarks to make about him, she will be able to see them. Okay, somebody else?
Fred was very committed to this church. In many ways, he was committed in the background, so you never really saw where he was committed. So he was in vigil in the back, but also a lot of times I sat with him and we counted the monies, and he sat and input it in a computer. Also, he was the chaplain for our church at AV Church. And where else? Let's see. Oh, also, I believe he was also the practitioner that collected the prayer cards and distributed them to the practitioners. Yeah, and also Interfaith Council represented our church there. And let's see, where else did he? Yeah, and where else did he? But he did like many things in the background, so he really didn't even know all these places that he worked for the church behind the scenes, basically. So he was very committed to the church, and this was a pillar of the church. And also, I heard he was also very helpful to Pildy, doing lots of things for her, and very helpful. So, yeah, he was a pillar of the church in the background. So he did lots of things that we never even saw that he did. So he was just an amazing person. And what I've learned from this church is that when our soul leaves this earth, that it goes home to God. So that's a wonderful thing. So, you know, we all kind of, not to cry when someone dies, but I just know that our soul goes home to God, and so that's a good thing. So I love you, Fred, and we know you're home to God, so that's good.
Thank you, Nick.
Now that I know this is going out to Dory, I have to say a couple of things. Yeah. Miss you, Dory. And I know you miss Fred's presence too. We all do. I have to tell you, Dory, that there was a time, I think Fred and I think we were in a class, probably one of Reverend Gregory's, communication, conscious loving classes or something like that. Anyway, I remember that the question was something about, to us, was what is it that we see in the person that we love, that we really cherish? And the question came around to Fred, and he was a man of few words. And so, and I'm trying to prompt him and help him a little bit. And I said, Fred, what is it about Dory? Think about Dory. What is it about Dory that you really, what first captured your interest with Dory? And still he sat there quietly, and finally he got it out. What came to him that he wanted to share was that I liked her way. I liked the way she had of saying things and doing things. And so I just wanted you to know that, Dory. I also have to tell you all that Dory often, he was quiet and he was in the background and he was always doing things for us. But Dory was the one who she came up to me twice. One was when we did have the tutoring center when Reverend Dr. Don was here. And she came up to me and she said, I think you should get Fred to tutor. I think that maybe she was looking for something that, maybe she was kind of pushing him out there as, okay, some days you don't know what to do with yourself quite now that you're retired. So this would be a good thing. And she said, I think he'd make a really great tutor because he has this background in engineering. And that was the first I knew of that, because he didn't talk about himself and what he had done in his life. And so she said, I really think he'd make a good tutor and in math. And so we did train him. And Diane Kaler, who's another one who has gone on to that new adventure, but she and I trained him, and he worked with kids in math. And they were always a little bit, boy, I'm telling you, sometimes kids like to fool around when they're after school and having to get tutoring. And no, with Fred, they were very serious because he was very serious. He was very serious about those math classes and what you needed to know. And he'd take their textbooks and look at them and take a minute to kind of catch up with what the special thing was that they needed to know for their homework. And then he would very carefully begin explaining it to them, and they were, they were in awe of him. And another thing was when I was, I suppose I was president of the board at the time, and I wanted to recognize people for their volunteer efforts, and so every month I would present a little something to the volunteer of the month. And again, after a few of those, Dory came up to me and said, you know, we really need to recognize Fred because he does this and this and this and this. And yes, that is very true. I mean, sometimes we didn't all even recognize what all he did. He did get here early. He was always, I mean, he just took it on because it was there to do. And so he just began to do it. And so when Dory came, I said, yes, Fred's on my list. We are going to recognize Fred. And I'm always going to see him sitting back there in vigil. So yeah, miss you, Fred, but I know that he's not just going home to God. I know that he is having happy adventures, and he is enjoying it fabulously. And Stacy, he would have loved that song. So thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, somebody else? Yeah. Well, I was really happy to see Dory's daughter showing up here because she had talked about her so much. Nancy, do you think you might want to? No, she doesn't. But I just wanted to acknowledge you for being here. Anybody else? What, Penn, would you? No, okay. Okay. Okay, if there's nobody else, then, yeah, I'd like to conclude. I'd just like to thank everybody for coming and spending your afternoon acknowledging Fred, who is like a very important person in this community. And I'd like to invite you, we're having a barbecue and other goodies after the ceremony. And so you're all invited to come. And I'd also like to thank everybody who helped to prepare this special service for Fred. And so right now I'm going to do the closing prayer. And if you feel comfortable, just close your eyes and go within and just recognize the power and the presence of God, which is in our very midst, which is lifting us to our highest good. And as we conclude this ceremony for our beloved Fred Asper, well, I'm just so grateful and thankful for his presence in my life and all the contributions that he has made to this community. And I'm grateful and thankful for all those who participated in this service. And just in this spirit of gratitude, I just release this prayer into the law, knowing that God has heard my words and is honoring them as I speak, as we just say goodbye to our dear friend and fellow congregant, Fred Asper. And I just let go and I let God and I allow it to be, and so it is. Amen. And at this time, I'd like to invite Frank up for closing remarks.
Okay, everyone, how's everyone doing? So we can hear that Fred was an amazing man, and he did a lot of service around here for us, and he did a lot of growth around here too as well. And that's what our centers are all about, is personal growth and learning how to deal with our everyday lives that goes on. So this is our chance now. We are going to now, this is a tradition that the CSLs do. We are now going to stand up and we are going to give Fred the biggest applause
whistles, whatever you want to do. We are going to send him off with the most beautiful applause and send him off with love, letting him know that he did an amazing job with his life. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our service. Thank you.